From the past, the disposable paper bag.
Care home fees can be eye-wateringly expensive, so a scheme offering to reduce costs can seem like a tempting proposition. But one wealth management company offering such schemes has now gone bust, leaving hundreds of clients around the country scrambling to take back legal ownership of their homes. Others are desperately trying to track down the hundreds of thousands of pounds they invested with the firm. Tony Bonsignore has the story.
Keep it in the family. So went the slogan used by Universal Wealth Management.
Hi, I'm Steve Long, co-founder of the Universal Group.
The sell was a simple one. Set up a trust with Universal and your assets will be protected if you go into residential care.
The scheme transferred ownership of people's homes to a trust controlled by a third party. The plan was to avoid expensive care home fees.
However you want to protect your family.
Hundreds of people went to Universal seminars and paid them around £3,000 to set up a trust, handing over their house, wills and savings to the control of Universal directors. Back in 2011, Inside Out tried to talk to Universal. Customers had complained that the trusts being sold were not suitable for their needs. The founder, Steve Long, didn't want to talk to us, so we paid him a visit at one of his seminars.
It's nice of you to come and unannounced into a seminar here. You've put me on the spot here.
Well, I have put you on the spot because actually we've been trying to get in touch with you. Your office told us you're out of the country. That wasn't the case, was it? You're here, giving another seminar today.
I'm not prepared to discuss on television the intellectual property that we have. All I can say is that the trust that we use has a 100% track record.
But that track record came off the rails this year when Steve Long's Universal company collapsed, leaving hundreds of people without access to their trusts, wills or savings. I'm going to try to discover what happened. My first step is to meet one of Universal's clients, Shirley Leach.
We've never had any money given us, but we've saved every penny.
Shirley and her husband Kenneth went to a Universal seminar in 2008. Impressed by what they'd heard, they signed over their house to a Universal Wealth Trust. It meant they no longer officially owned it, but they were told by Universal Wealth it would help them to protect their assets.
We signed up for, hopefully, to avoid inheritance tax and protection against care home fees.
Before he developed dementia, Kenneth had given his son Martin a folder with all the documents relating to his finances and affairs. A stickler for detail, he wrote a letter to explain what he'd agreed with Universal.
Dad wanted to protect as much as possible the assets of the family so that he had something to pass on. I always said, Dad, I'd much rather you spent every penny before you die. Frankly, what he wanted to do was the best for the family.
So this is an attempt for him to sort out his affairs?
Yes, indeed. You will see that I have made more than one attempt to set out the situation of our finances without yet succeeding in producing a comprehensive statement. But the first contact for advice should be Steve Long, and he will hopefully do all the work that is linked to the trusts. Remember, documents in this file are copies, with the originals held by Steve Long of Universal.
As well as the house, Martin's parents also handed over £75,000 of their savings. But today, Martin doesn't know where the money is.
There was never a statement from a bank, so there was only the paper record on their own headed note paper.
They must have been told something.
There is nothing in writing to say where the money has been invested. The investigating authorities are already talking as if there will be no funds refunded.
They appear to have lost their £75,000. Martin discovered there was a problem with Universal in May this year.
My email bounced. I contacted the telephone number and there was no reply. In fact, there's no reply, that it wasn't connected.
And how did you feel?
It was a time when your heart kind of stops and you think, what on earth do I do now?
Martin and his parents are not alone. We've learned there are at least 140 people in a similar position, but some customers are unaware of the collapse, so there could be many more. If only we could ask someone at Universal.
The problem is no one quite knows what's happened to the company, so I'm going to its last known office. I've been told that the company first hit problems in November last year, and that the firm's founder, Steve Long, abandoned these premises without taking client files with him.
And it certainly looks like there is nobody here. We were, however, given these photographs, which were taken in the Universal offices when the company closed. Scores of confidential documents were stacked up, lying around the office, all unprotected. In May, the files were seized by the police. Many customers are still in the dark about what's happening. That's partly because companies specialising in trust are effectively unregulated. There is a professional body called STEP, of which Steve Long was a member, but it has no legal powers. George Hodgson is their chief executive.
I think we have to be clear. I think we have to acknowledge that A, we're not a regulator, B, there is a regulatory gap in the UK. We would like that regulatory gap to be filled. And I think this is an unfortunate consequence of that regulatory gap that's in the UK at the moment.
But there are no plans to regulate this sector by the government.
So we've seen that the Wealth Preservation Trust has many benefits.
There is a police investigation. Such is the scale of the inquiry, in the past few weeks the investigation was taken over by a special operations unit. But at the moment, there's no sign of the money. For Martin's parents, safeguarding their future has been very costly. His father, Kenneth, moved into a care home because of his dementia. Their savings have gone, and they are paying for his care from diminishing funds. Meanwhile, Kenneth doesn't know that their investment has disappeared.
You think that you've worked for the future.
But you've ended up paying care home fees anyway.
Absolutely. £850 a week, which adds up. You're getting near to 50,000 a year. I could not believe that it could happen to us. I could not believe it. He would be very upset about it. And it's all destroyed. So